Join the Wide Whale team May 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern for part 2 of our 3-part virtual event series, Voice of the Resident. For part 2, we will look specifically at residency. Using AI topic analysis, we've analyzed the free text of 400,000 Google reviews from residents of hundreds of top multifamily groups, including the NMHC Top 50, to identify how often 50 key topics are mentioned by residents. By filtering for and analyzing the topics by life cycle stage, we can isolate which topics are more influential during residency, versus tour, or renewal. Go to widewhale.com/data to sign up or find it in the revised community. That's widewhale.com/data.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Optimized, a marketing performance podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm Janet Rosseth, your host, 25-year veteran of multifamily marketing, and founder and CMO of Cadence Marketing Solutions. I want to thank you all first for hitting play today. You have a lot of choices in content, and I'm really happy that you chose this podcast today. We're going to dig into topics that impact those who influence multifamily marketing from a standpoint of achieving higher performance, more efficient work models, better decision-making, and new perspectives. And my goal is always to help you find 1% better in your day-to-day life. So here we are. I'm thrilled to announce my guest today, Anthony Paganucci from Brynson. Anthony, I'm going to let you introduce yourself in a second, but I just want to remind our listeners the reason that I named this podcast Optimized was really off of the definition of optimized, which is to make something more effective, more efficient, I'm going to reread that. Let's just reread that so I get that right. This is me doing a new podcast, right? According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the meaning of optimized is to make it as perfect, as effective, and as functional as possible. And I always like to really focus on the word as, which is why I needed to reread that. So things can be as perfect, as efficient, and as functional as possible. And sometimes perfection really gets in the way of progress. So I really love having you as a guest today because you have just been, running full steam ahead on Brynson, building new things, new services for the industry, and perfecting it as you go. The, emphasis on the word as again. So I'd really like you to just introduce yourself and tell us a little about your journey.
Sure. Thank you, Janet. I'm Anthony Paganucci. I'm the founder and CEO of Brynson. I am nearing the 20-year veteran mark in multifamily, but I don't like to count anymore after you said 15. I'm done after 15. I'll just say it's, 15 plus 5 or something like that later. But
I got to 25 and stopped counting. It made me feel old.
I know it's aggressive because you can just tell, maybe I need a little bit more, a little more wrinkle cream. But yeah, been on the owner operator side. So that's kind of like where I think you and I have a lot of great synergy because we've been, in multiple positions all the way from a leasing agent and almost everything in between that and the owner operator.
Yep.
So yeah, I've been doing that for quite some time. I found a passion in it because it's just, there's more to it than just, the data set, right? So there's a lot of like the community that's involved, the people that you meet, and we give back, we give people homes. So it's rewarding, once you ultimately look at like why we're doing this. So it's pretty great.
That's so true. I think that really is the passion behind the industry is there isn't any other product that we can sell that's as meaningful and as emotional as people's homes.
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter where you serve in the industry, no matter what end you're on, you impact the place that people call home.
Absolutely. And you get to meet so many walks of life. It's
Sure.
really interesting. And if we could only have a reality show, if it wasn't against fair housing, it would be, it would be sold out every time or whatever. It's the highest ratings.
Right. I know we often say we should write a book about the industry, but if people read the real stories, they might never get into the industry, right?
Right. Right.
So when you and I met, we met through David Staley at Digital. He has connected me to so many good people. I just love him.
Same.
But you were just getting started on a consulting end, much like I was. And, fast forward a couple of years and you've got Brynson Group and you are just building at massive speed. Tell us a little bit about what Brynson does.
So, as we said earlier, being on the owner operator side for so long, you get to see a lot of the inequities. You get to see a lot of the shortcomings in our industry, but you also can, we all have issues, right? We all have problems we need to solve. But a lot of them I kept feeling like it was like Groundhog's Day. I'm like, we have these issues that we're just like continuing to complain about, but we're not doing anything. And then I also realized too that having worked for a couple of different sized companies, that, a lot of times the bigger that you are, the more access to success you have. And we all know it's kind of like, the cash flow and, the bandwidth and the extra heads. So what we set out to do was kind of help level the playing field. And what we mean by that is provide access to success no matter the income, the size or the income statement. So even if you're an owner operator of 5 properties and, let's just say 1,000 units or 500 units, all the way to the 400 properties and 75,000 units, giving everyone the same access and level the playing field was something that I'm very passionate about, because the people with the smaller organizations are super savvy. They just don't have the bandwidth. They don't have the buying power. They don't have the leverage or the technology. But by us, starting out and saying what could be the low-hanging fruit for us to get started with, it was ILS management. So kind of being that agnostic provider and advocate for them, helping them find the right, I'm going to say bespoke, because that's such a, like a new word that everyone's got to be using right now. Such a bespoke mix of ILS packages for, not just your portfolio, but your property, and actually digging deep and finding exactly the best ROI for each one by package. So knowing that that has been something that has never been done in our industry before, we wanted to be the first to be able to tackle on that big elephant. And as a friend of mine says, when you're tackling an elephant, they always say it's like a bite at a time. But he tells me, he says, think of it as elephant carpaccio. And we all know that carpaccio is super thin, right? He goes, you are taking it
Yep.
in a carpaccio, thin, 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 and just taking it one piece at a time. But that kind of transitioned us a little bit as, and added, and we've evolved, if you will, to help us develop our new product, which is called Brynson. And that is where, I don't care who in this industry you are, big or small, you continuously have dashboard analysis, right? Like you've got all these new services that promise to be the best new thing, and they work, but you have to keep track of it. And we don't have a solution out there that actually brings everything together for you. So we wanted to make sure that we could log into one spot, access anyone that we pay a subscription fee to, no matter the service offering, and be able to analyze it, understand it, and bring that, clarity to complexity. That's kind of our
Right.
tagline. So there's a lot
And I
to it.
love that you're doing this. I mean, from the first time you and I spoke to every time we've been on a call since, I've been equally as impressed with what you're building. And I want to file this conversation specifically under building more efficient work processes to reach higher performance, because I
Right.
have sat in those marketing roles for multiple companies and for multiple clients. And you absolutely hit the nail on the head that there is a lot of waste in time and energy and just inefficient processes in trying to just carve out how to manage all of your ad spend when you're not a big enough company to have, fancy business intelligence or, all the bells and whistles on the 3 top PM software solutions. You're duct taping solutions together and reading across multiple dashboards, and you're working your hardest to work your ad budget for individual properties or your portfolio within the parameters that you're able to. And when your 5,000 units are smaller or 10,000 and smaller, or just not the size of a Graystar or Cushman Wakefield, or,
Right.
the ones that every ad rep tells you they've got all of them on,
Right. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that.
you just don't have that buying volume. You just don't have the ability to have contract flexibility or package flexibility. And I can tell you, I know my jaw dropped when you and I first started talking, because I had multiple times where the company I worked for would buy a property, say, from an owner that had one of those large institutional management companies overseeing it. And when we bought it and brought it into our portfolio, we actually had to turn off a lot of advertising because we did not have the buying power.
Right.
So same budget, far less volume, pricing, and packaging.
Mhm.
So it was hard and kind of frustrating that we had to work the ad spend across just what we were able to do within the budget that we had, even though there were probably a lot better ways to tackle that. So I'm excited about what you're bringing out in terms of managing the ad spend and leveling the playing field, but even more so, the analytics that you've created. My team has tried to come up with Excel doc and Google Sheets, everything that leverages all that data that manages the ads and the contracts and the end dates and when you need to put a cancellation in and what level of spend you're on and how many times you've changed that package
Yeah,
throughout the year.
right.
And what you're bringing out is really impressive.
Thank
So, talk to us a little bit more about just the Bryn sites across all the units that you're serving and how that data set and that management and organization is benefiting your clients.
Absolutely. So I can say this. So it's kind of fun, right? Where it's like you said that, oh my God, building those Excel spreadsheets. And then we'd have to hire, I remember hiring an outsource like from Upwork, like hiring an Excel guru to help us build those. And it was a complete
Yep.
waste of money because we broke it day 2 after he left. And he's like, no, you have to
Ditto.
hire me
We did
again.
too.
Yeah. He's like, you have to hire me again and then I'll fix it. And I'm like, no, where's your data? Where's your guarantee? And he's like, no, no, no. It was a complete nightmare for us. But it brings back horrible nightmares for that because it's, feeding from one sheet to another sheet to this, but
Yes.
horrible. So
Yes,
basically,
being able to click through the tabs and see all of your ad spend across one source and which contract levels you were on and when they were all expiring. And then we even went so far as to add in a tab that would capture all of your floor plan media and your
oh yeah.
video media. So you could easily pull that into whatever the ILS feed was
Mm-hmm.
that was going to send to all those sources. And you're absolutely right that the amount of time that we put into building that whole spreadsheet within a matter of months, it was already like you click one thing wrong and it's broken and disorganized. Or, I mean, we know how it goes
Yeah.
in management companies. You offboard a property and then you onboard a property. And recreating those pieces was challenging. So, an actual dashboard to manage all of that sounds like just a dream come true.
And, don't forget, if you went on vacation for more than 3 days, somebody went in and broke it. Or somebody went in and did not keep it updated. So, it was like, oh, we changed this and we added like when we upgraded to the value add property, now it's a 1-bedroom deluxe. Well, we never made deluxe
Right.
on that spreadsheet. So it's, there's room for error in a lot of things that we've done previously in the industry. And I think now everyone is starting to realize because we're valuing our time a lot more. And
Yeah.
we're realizing that if we can't get budgets to help us, get a job done or alleviate something and can provide convenience, our time is so important that the value of that product is worth my time to pay for it. Right. So it's like, if I can save
Right.
hours and hours so I can do more to, put heads in beds, that's our kind of our tagline, right? It's like, we help you put heads in beds.
Yeah.
And it's by way of these different platforms we, all use, bring them all together and the data points, but really just saving time and providing cleaner data. Because I will say this, I think one thing is very interesting in our industry, we're always, out to find clean data and provide clean data. It's
Yep.
nearly impossible in our industry these days, right? And we can do as much as we can to make sure that we input in proper data. But for like source attribution and things like that, I mean, there's so many mediums out there that if you think that that source that is really coming in is their one and only, you're completely wrong, right? So it's like
Right.
they passed by it, they saw an ad, they got redirected here, they went there, but then they finally filled out a form on this one. So
Right.
if
Yep.
you
And
can,
you and I have talked a lot too about it's not really just the lead either. It's not, we can't be so dependent on the lead source to be the final
yeah,
generator of the lease. The lead source gets the lead to the leasing team. It's the leasing team then that has to pick it up and hand it off and know exactly what conversion tools and conversation points to use with each prospect to make it meaningful.
hmm
So generating your ad spend based on your occupancy simply because you're trying to get enough leads in the door doesn't always solve the problem.
yeah. And to that point, we have several clients that have a mentality of it's a numbers game. Right. There's some that we have on one side of the spectrum that's like it's a total numbers game. So hit me with your best shot kind of thing. Give me on Gucci Prada on every single one of them all the way across.
Yep.
And then it's like, but then the others are a little more savvy, and they're like, you know what? Let's go refine and optimize, right? And optimize what
Yep.
we're doing. So we've got all kinds, and I will say that the ones that we find that put, say that's a numbers game, and just the more leads you send, my conversion rate will ultimately, by law of averages, fill me up. And you might be right
Yep.
in the longer game, but unfortunately, it's very expensive. You have burnout. You don't handle all the leads, and then you get a reputation for not having any of that. So it's a terrible snowball effect when you are not smart with how you're making decisions. And so I think people have really got to change that mentality about, let me be on everything. And it's like, no.
Right.
Let's start with the root cause, and
I
let's.
used to think that you just want to flood the properties with as many leads as possible because, 100 leads should, in theory, with industry national averages of 5% conversion rate on leads, 100 leads should result in 5 leases.
Right.
We won't even get into whether or not they all get approved and actually show up on move-in day. That's a whole nother
Right.
conversation. But leasing teams are stretched pretty thin right now too. And I have always trained leasing teams across the companies that I've worked with that I don't want to send you so many leads. I don't want to inundate you with a traffic stampede. I want to send you the most qualified leads that are ready to be converted. Because if you are really good at what you do and you're really honing your skills and you really know how to pick up that handoff, you shouldn't need 100 leads to close 5 leases.
Yeah.
You should need 30.
Right.
And then we're really talking, right? So honing in on that is where the efficiency is at, not necessarily spending wasteful money to have the highest package and more leads. But it's begs the question of, okay, so if a company, let's talk about your ideal client, and the people that you tend to attract and work with, I'm guessing, are generally those who don't have full marketing teams in-house, who are able to sit and manage contracts all day long and make sure the feeds are working and the photos are serving, and we're running the numbers on conversion tactics. What does your ideal client look like?
Join the Wide Whale team May 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern for part 2 of our 3-part virtual event series, Voice of the Resident. For part 2, we will look specifically at residency. Using AI topic analysis, we've analyzed the free text of 400,000 Google reviews from residents of hundreds of top multifamily groups, including the NMHC Top 50, to identify how often 50 key topics are mentioned by residents. By filtering for and analyzing the topics by life cycle stage, we can isolate which topics are more influential during residency, versus tour, or renewal. Go to widewhale.com/data to sign up or find it in the revised community. That's widewhale.com/data.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think, to kind of go back for a quick second on there, it's like a lot of times we're seeing you're being reactive versus proactive. And the reason you're being reactive instead of proactive is because you don't have the time to be proactive, right? So this is where using more, doing more with less comes into play, of saying, all right, I need to time manage, but I need to find a system that can help me get from point A to point B. And what we call it the jobs to be done theory, right? So you have an end goal, and what are the steps that you take to get there? And in order to put heads in beds, you've got to make all these decisions, put this data together, and be proactive and understand your markets. That's huge because, it's very big, like seasonality.
Yep.
There's very many variables. So when you ask about kind of like our clients and like who would be kind of ideal or who we currently have, on the ILS management side and like our Brynsites product, you're right. Is it a gray star? No. Like they've got a 50-person marketing, and I'm being facetious here, but a 50-person marketing team, with tons of data. They're the largest in the country, now the world, and it's like, great. They've got their stuff together. But the other 12,000 property management companies in the United States that are not the gray stars, anyone, let's just say like under 100 properties, even under 50 properties, under 20 properties, the ones that just understand efficiency and want clarity. Because again, going back, we have such dashboard analysis that we don't know what to understand. We don't know what to read, what's true, what's
Right.
not. And it all comes down to who is the one, signing the check. What is he most concerned with, or she, or they? I don't know. I got to go with they. Excuse me. What are they most concerned? I know. What are they most concerned with? And it's like putting heads in beds, right? Well, if we're in the marketing, we're siloed over here, right? We're kind of siloed as a marketing team.
Yep.
And then you've got the leasing team that's siloed. And then you have the operations team that's siloed. And our goal with Brynson and Brynsites is to literally make that a perfect kind of like trifecta and bridge all those gaps so that everyone has clarity on like what's actually happening. If we can see that we're getting 100 leads, 30 tours, 0 leases, that is the person, product, or place. Stop spending more money. It's not going to turn around. That's something you've got to deal with an on-site situation. If it's the opposite, where you're getting 100 leads, 100 tours, and, or excuse me, 0 leads. Yeah, I've got to go back in my mind. All these hundreds I've been coming up with. If you're getting like 0 leads, low leads, that's on the ILSs. But when they come in for a tour and they don't convert, that's on you, or the owner operator. So we're very transparent, and because we're agnostic, we have no skin in the game when it comes to these providers. So we just want to make sure that we give them the owner operators the detail, what they need to make those decisions. And that's where I think a lot of our industry has lacked, where it's like gone very granular. We just do a quick, and by the way, Janet, remember when you did this? When did you look at it? During renewals. You only looked at renewals when you're like, how did we done this last year? Because I haven't had time to look at it every month,
Yeah, it's very challenging to look at every month. I was fortunate that within my team at the last company I worked for, we did touch the ILS management and the ad spend management monthly and tried to make better decisions on what we were learning. But you're stuck in a contract.
Right.
You can't necessarily make the changes. And you and I have talked about this. For some products, there are reps on the ground in our market and they're fantastic and they act like partners of the business, and that's awesome. But then for other products, there aren't.
Right.
That doesn't mean that the product's not effective just because you don't have a rep knocking on your door every day to help you.
And that's where
we talked about this. You and I talked about this morning too, that we tend to buy ads based on what loads in the search in our current market.
Oh, right.
So let me describe that better. Okay. My team runs a lot of prospect audits. We call them stride reports, and we shop a property across what their marketing experience feels like to the human handoff. And I have people that shop from all over the nation. And when they shop, let's say Minneapolis from Texas, the sources that show up are very different than the ones that show up for me in Minneapolis. So as marketers, sometimes we get in the spirit of, oh, I don't ever see that source showing up in Minneapolis. 30 to 40% of your traffic is coming from outside of your market, transferring in from somewhere else. So you got to make sure you're also on the platforms where they're going to see it. And that's hard. That's again, like, okay, I've only got so much budget. I can only stretch it across so many things. How do I be everywhere at once?
And that's where, like I said earlier, also during that time, it was like, we've got to start with the foundations and we've got to start with our teams. And the best ROI, and I've said this until I'm blue in the face, the best ROI starts with a shop report, secret shop. Oh, well, those aren't good because, the secret shopper wasn't great. Do another one. They're not expensive. Let me tell you, it's worth.
Do so many of those anymore. I've heard a lot of commentary on secret shops lately and people feeling like they aren't as effective anymore. Shopping just the agent isn't as effective anymore as shopping the experience. I'll just tell you, like, we shop across the experience from Google to the ILSs to your Google business platform, your reputation management, and have the full experience that a prospect would have before we shift to the human handoff. And it is amazing, all the tech that we've launched out there that might have the slightest little friction point that you don't realize is happening. And it's actually really resulting in a buckling of prospects getting to your door and to your leasing agents. They're getting mixed messages. They're getting redundant messages. They're getting automated messages. It's insane. So
the one that asks them like, hey, what do they say? Like, when you fill out a contact form, you've got a leasing bot, and you said you wanted a 1-bedroom, and May April 15th, and it says, hi, welcome to like Enclave at so-and-so. What size apartment are you looking for? What day do you need? It's like, I'm not answering
When
this.
would you like to move?
Yeah, when would you like to move? And it's like, I just answered this, it's just,
gave it to you.
This is the
Exactly.
optimize that needs to happen, right? Like,
exactly. And this is the thing, like, I am the biggest supporter of marketers and leasing. I started out in this industry leasing. I understand both roles and the demands on all of it, but It is exactly what your service is doing that, okay, if we have a couple of marketers within an organization that are trying to be everything everywhere, are we accomplishing any of them at 100%?
No.
Or are we just in survival mode? So looking for opportunities, bravely looking for opportunities where you can free up some of your bandwidth to do the more meaningful work that's going to really make that difference
Mhm.
in your performance is a courageous place to be. So asking questions like, how much time do I actually spend managing the ads, looking at the contracts, evaluating, my properties on these sources, how they're performing, how they look out there. Do I give it 100%? If not, is there another way to accomplish this that does give it 100%? I say the same thing about managing social media too, that we really want to do it in-house, or we really prefer that our on-site teams lead it. But are you able to deliver that experience at 100% and actually not just post, but build audience at the same time? There's
And
a lot of pieces and parts to the marketing role that we either end up not doing it as well as we could or at 100% level because we're just trying to survive the day, or we're sacrificing progress over trying to continue how we do things right now. We can just barely keep up with what we do right now, so we're not going to make eye contact with where we should be in the future. That's
it's
going to take too
funny.
much.
No, yeah, and it's funny because a lot of times, we always hear that like 80-20 rule, right? Like, progress is better than perfection. But then there's
Mm-hmm.
also, we have to realize it's kind of like when they say, know the landscape, read the room. If an 80-20 is going to work for some, it's not going to work for other things, right? So when you say
Yep.
like posting on social, if you have certain providers that you look and it's like, I don't even know now. I just saw one the other day that I was like mortified that I saw. It was like Happy Hot Dog Day. Are you kidding? Like, it's 2024. That was an automated thing. And I'll never forget, we had this automated for us one time and then we were no longer with the service, but it was like, I think it might have been 4th of July. And it was an automation. No one was monitoring. And they posted a photo of someone having a barbecue on their balcony. Well, in New York, some of them
Oh
are built out of
no.
wood, and it is illegal to have a grill
I
on
know
your
exactly
balcony.
where this is going.
And so then the threat or the comments were like, I would love to, could I have a grill? How much is this going to cost? Like all these threads. So it was like no one
Right.
monitored this. So it was
Yep.
actually cost us more time to do the cleanup than it did to
Yeah.
monitor it. So that 80-20 can really bite you sometimes, but so you really have to be selective,
Yep.
right? And I get it.
Right.
You just have to find that, and that's where
And again, like if you're going to outsource a service, you still need somebody in charge of managing that relationship.
exactly. That's where I was just going to say. It was like, that's where kind of new for our industry is what we're doing, being like the advocate, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
and I hate saying the middleman because it's got such a, stigma behind it. But when you're actually become like the
You're an
agnostic,
extension.
and
You're an extension
exactly.
of the company.
And that's what
Yep.
we don't like the partner, like the word partner is kind of overused and like when they say like the supplier, the vendor, that's kind of not what it is. But the guy at the end of
Yeah.
the hallway that you always go to when you're at your big office, right? And you're like, hey, let's just say his name's
Yep.
Dan, right? So Dan's at the end, he's kind of quiet until you need something, but you can always trust him because he has no skin. He's going to tell you the truth, real straightforward guy. And that's who we want to be, right? Where we don't have that in the industry because everyone is selling something. So if you ask yourself, like, who's agnostic in our industry? When I mean like truly agnostic, right? Where it's like,
Yep.
what is it that they're providing? We've got some kind of supplier everywhere, especially in our industry. There's always someone selling something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yep.
just it's time that you can, actually rely on someone. Not saying that you can't. Please, I hope that, you get that, right? Where it's like we have some amazing suppliers out there that offer amazing products.
We really do. We truly do.
Like awesome actually, and just good humans. And we just need to figure
Mm-hmm.
out like when you don't have that bandwidth to do the due diligence, who can you rely on? Right? Who can you
Yeah.
like see as the trusted source that has no skin in that game? And that's what we wanted to set out to do and kind of like optimize, like you say, like, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? This big PMS may not be good for your 5 property portfolio because you don't have a tech team to help you integrate. Why don't you look at this
Right.
one, and this ILS is not going to work just because, so we have, we've got some ways of like very consultative. That's like you.
Yeah. Sometimes we're really shy about outsourcing, and it's maybe because we come across that this is something that my team does for free, is manage the ILSs, manage the ad spend, leverage the data. I don't have to pay somebody because I have somebody sitting in that seat to do it.
Yep.
My question is always, my comment is always, free has a labor cost.
Every
Free
time.
has a time cost. And if your small marketing team is unable to manage that component at 100% and give it all they got, then you need to consider whether or not outsourcing makes sense or outsourcing other components make sense,
Yep.
because there's always a sacrifice in something we aren't doing, something we're saying no to in order to say yes. So
That's where,
I'm a big believer in really evaluating a couple of times a year what could be outsourced and done better than your team, so that your team can focus on things that you have not been able to tackle yet.
And just remember, like, we have to remind ourselves that, and I say this across everyone, like, remind ourselves that as the owner operator and the person that signs the contracts, you also sign the check. And you need to
Yeah.
make it work for you. You have a fiduciary responsibility, but don't be afraid of any supplier or vendor, right? And tell them what you need, what you want. And I've told you this, our director of operations, I can't steal the line, but she said it great. At the time of renewal, have you cost me money? Have you saved me money? Have you made me money? That is what
Right.
should be at everyone's mind when you're doing a renewal with a provider or going to a new provider. And it's like, if you're not making or saving or, if you're costing me money and not turning any, ROI, you got to go. There's no question. Even if we're friends, this is a business decision, and I know our industry is very close knit. So a lot of times I do see that with our clients where it's like, well, I've just known her for so long. She's come to my family barbecues, or he or she. And it's like, unfortunately, we just, you're not making any money off of it. And so that's been a tough conversation we've had to have in this industry for a while because it's very relationship based. But I think,
Yeah, I mean, the best relationships, I'm a huge
yeah,
fan of the service providers and operators and marketers all at the same table together. Like,
yeah,
we can all, as operators or marketers, sit and vent about all of our challenges till we're blue in the face. But until we invite the service providers to the table, they're the ones that create the solutions and create, new technology that fills holes that we aren't able to do with human beings. It's exciting to see what's coming in the industry. But
and remember,
my
don't
point,
forget, there is so much business to go around. No
yes,
one
there
is
is.
actually a competitor. I mean, you might consider a competitor, but if you can tell me that you've got all 12,000, give or take 12,000 property management companies, and if say you are a property management company, this industry is very simple, right? It's heads and bets. And it's a very simple industry, but we make it very difficult on ourselves by creating all
Yep.
these things. And it's like, help each
We
other.
want to get
There's
the
no
right
secret sauce.
people in our homes to have the right experience, and we want to give our employees a really good experience in the process. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of really, really exceptional service providers that operate under the assumption of, I hope to be as good of a partner with you that at the end of any conversation, I can also be the one to say we aren't the greatest fit.
Yep.
We're not delivering what we hope to be able to deliver. And, that's just how it played out, but we all worked our hardest to get there. And,
Absolutely.
I think there's just so much opportunity in this industry to come together and work together to offset labor shortages or bandwidth or just do more with less.
Yeah.
Which is really what I hope to bring in this podcast, is just those conversations where we all come to the table together.
And that's where I
So
think
we are
we've done it.
already, Anthony, at a half hour. I could go on with you for
Janet, what have we
ever.
covered? No, I'm just kidding. No, we've done so much. I know. But
I
that's why
know,
I
but I
love
have
that we
another
can connect.
question for you, because it's really important to me that we always leave listeners with, a way to reach for 1% better in their personal or professional lives. So I want to ask you this question from either a professional standpoint or a personal standpoint. You come to every day with so much energy and so much drive and so much motivation. How do you do it? How do you reach your 1% every day?
That's a great question. And I will say, under the toughest moments, and let me tell you that doing what we're doing and getting in the industry the way we are has not been easy in any form or fashion. I actually, when it's the hardest of times, I stop. I stop what I'm doing, and I literally will take a few hours or a day or a weekend, and I will not do any work, and I will sit there and I will just recalibrate. and actually say, okay, let me remember, is this following my mission statement, my purpose for this business? Am I making decisions based on, these goals? And also, is a big world out there, Janet. There is so much going on. And I just remind myself every single day that one step is one step forward. I'm fine. We're all doing what we can. It's all going to work out in the end, and don't stress. But I do stop. I pause when it's like super
I
difficult,
love
and then I
that.
let that think again. I'm like, what am I panicking about? Why am I panicking? Because I've had that moment to breathe and
Oh,
clear my mind.
yes.
But yeah, it actually, you have
I love
it's just
that.
unbelievable. It's just like, you know what? I'm taking the day. And then you go and you like, ultimately the answer comes to you. So rather than going out and searching for something, we've always had it
Yep.
within ourselves. We've always had it within us. So I
I
don't know
always
if that
tell my
helps.
kids too that it is amazing what a good night of sleep can do for your perspective.
Oh, remind me what
Like
it's
you lay down
like.
thinking, I can't possibly sleep because I have too much to do or I have too much to think about or this, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. But it is
Yeah,
amazing when you wake up in the morning after a decent night's sleep, like, oh,
the clarity,
totally.
the
It
clarity.
was right there.
Yeah, I feel lighter and brighter. I'm like, and then I'm the guy that's like, should we go for a run? And then I remind myself, I'm
Uh-huh.
like, oh gosh, calm down, Anthony, calm down. So
Hey, a good run is everything, right?
it is, and that's why. But it's been cold, so I'm like, this is a little chilly. So if I'm in
Yep,
bed,
me
no one's
too.
in bed. I know, but
Me too. I'm just waiting for that perfect day to get out. Like my time hop is filled with memories of the perfect first spring run, and I'm just waiting for the right time.
what isn't spring like a month ago? Like, isn't it supposed to be a month
Might have been for
ago?
Minnesota. Yes, we never got snow.
That's
Well,
crazy.
this has been such a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining us out
Of
here. I
course.
just want to close us out. Thank you again for taking the time with us and where our listeners can find you. How do
Sure.
they get a hold of you?
Sure. So definitely take a look at our website, Brynson.com. You can check out our Brynsite platform, ILS management. You can obviously email me. It's just Anthony@Brynson.com, Brynson. And then obviously our phone number's on there, so just reach us out. But we will be at a few conferences this year, so take a look and follow us on LinkedIn because we will be posting when and where. And especially the associations. We're really excited about getting to those and like NAA and AIM and all the other acronyms. So we'll be at
Good.
that.
I'm excited to keep up with you.
Yeah, so
And if you're a marketing influencer, either operations or supplier, you can be sure to check out Cadence Marketing Solutions too, where Anthony is also a member of our online Run Club community where we support marketers.
yes, please
But if
join.
you
That is
enjoyed
an
this,
awesome
yes,
time. Great group.
you've been such a good member out there too. If you've enjoyed this conversation, this episode, I hope you'll please like, comment, subscribe, share, and of course, visit the Multifamily Media Network to learn more about other industry podcasts, hosts, content, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities. Until next time, I hope you chase that 1%. And thank you, Anthony, for joining us.
Thank you, Janet. Have a good one. We'll see you soon.